Hey guys, this is Zara for Trans Youth, of course. So, hi. This week's topic is about advocacy. Big word. And so what I mean by that is, why did I decide to do what I'm doing with trans youth? Why did I decide to become a activist for the trans community? What made me go from being, just a trans woman to a trans woman who teaches people about the trans community as well as helps people within the trans community with their own transitions? Why did I decide to do that? And there's one simple answer, and that's because the world doesn't know how to deal with us. So not long into my transition, I realized that the life of a trans person is not easy. It didn't take me long to figure that out. Actually, I knew that going into the whole thing, but I mean, there's knowing it and there's really knowing it from experience. It's a different thing, and that's why I always say, people who aren't trans, I mean, you can be the biggest supporter of trans people, but if you aren't trans yourself, you really don't get what it's like to be trans. And I believe that, because it's true. It's one thing to know the struggle, and it's one thing to personally be struggling. And so it really didn't take me long to realize that. It was the way people looked at me when I was in school. When I started my transition, before I started HRT, I was in college. And as you may know now, I'm 23 years old and I still only have a high school education. That is because I started my transition when I was in college. I was a full-time female before I started HRT, which not many people do, but I did. And it wasn't easy. Like, the way people looked at me when I was in school, people saying he, him, male, whatever, when I was clearly wearing a makeup and a dress and presenting as female. Stuff like that. It hurt. And what ended up happening is I ended up being in a really bad place at that time. And I would skip most of my classes. When I was there for one semester, I did not pass a single class when I was there. And some people are able to deal with these things better than others. I unfortunately couldn't handle it at the time. I'm a much stronger person now than I was then, because of the struggle I've been through. And it might make you guys happy to know that I plan on going back to college, not this coming year, but the year following. It's too late for me to apply now, so I mean, I'll do it then, but I feel like I'm finally ready to take it on again. And, I'll be a 24-year-old college freshman, but, that's okay. As long as I'm doing it, age doesn't matter. Okay, so I guess that's kind of off topic, but that's what made me do it. That's what made me go from starting the whole thing. You know what, although as many of us did, I started my original YouTube channel to document my transition, which it does do, because I mean, look at me in my videos from 3.5 years ago when I started HRT, and even before I started HRT. Look at me in my videos then, and look at me in my videos now, and it's 100% different. It's like, that's not the same person. Not at all. Yeah. It's pretty crazy, actually. You can really see it. Even I saw it, and, people tend not to see stuff like that in themselves, but whatever. And that's, I feel, how it is for many of the trans youth bloggers and people and other trans people who do the same thing that we do. But at the same time, we feel this need to give back to the community. I feel like Like, we're facing the same kind of struggle that other minorities have had to deal with throughout history. Like, for example, black people have not always been seen equally to white people. Females have not always been seen as equals to males. Gay people, still now, I mean, there is still sexism and racism and homophobia, but all three of those are nowhere near as prominent as they were in the past. Of course, they still exist, and unfortunately, they will never really be gone. There are always going to be people who hate on others because of their skin color, their gender, their sexual orientation, whatever else you can hate somebody for. Literally anything. People will hate somebody for anything. I don't know. But the point is that's never going to go away. But we can make the world a better place for us. I'm having a hard time trying to say what I want to say, but I hope you guys are getting my point. It's like you hear stories of trans women that were not even trans women, trans people that were, say, for example, refused help at a clinic for being trans. They're like, oh, I disagree with what you're doing. We're not going to help you. And maybe it's AIDS or something that they need treatment for. I don't know. And they end up dying because they are refused the treatment. How often do you hear that kind of story? Trans people that are beaten to death in the middle of the street. How often do you hear that story? It's like, I don't want to grow up in that world, and I don't want anybody else to grow up in that world. I don't want my kids to grow up in that world. By the time I have kids, I hope it's a much better place for us. I mean, whether or not my kids end up being trans or gay or anything, it doesn't matter to me, of course, but I still want them to know that it's okay, and I don't want them to be exposed to any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. I hope you guys are getting my message here. Like, this is my passion. This is what I'm going to college for, actually. I'm going for media communications, and that's because I don't have a specific job in mind, but I know that I want to have a voice. I want to end up in a career where people will hear what I have to say. And so, that said, I could also end up going into journalism, but I feel like I'm a much better speaker than I am a writer. I'm really not that great at writing. Yeah. And I feel like it's my duty to help people, because I know the struggle, and I know other trans people are going through exactly the same thing that I'm going through. I want to make it as easy on them as I can. I want them to know what to expect. I want them to know, what they're getting into. And with people who aren't in the trans community, people who have barely any interaction with the LGBT community as a whole, the only thing they hear about the trans community is what they see in the media. And unfortunately, the media portrays us in a very bad way. And I'm not saying that they're saying trans people are evil or anything, but even on my favorite shows, I'm sad to admit, if they ever do have a trans person on one of these shows, like, for example, How I Met Your Mother is one of my favorite shows, they use words like tranny, and I'm only saying that word for the sake of this video. They use words like tranny, like it's okay to say that, and to me, that's not okay. That's like using the N-word for a black person, which is, of course, a word I would never say, but it's the same kind of thing. It's not okay, and I need people to know that. And anytime that they have a trans person on one of these shows, it's often portrayed by a large male in a dress, or something like that. Like, that is not what a trans woman is. You know? There's just so much more to it than that. Okay, you know, I feel like this video is running long. I hope you guys are getting what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. Sorry, I'm so passionate about this. I don't know. But yeah, okay, so this is Zara for Trans Youth. Sorry for, you know, talking your ear off. Yeah, I hope you guys are as passionate about this as I am, or at least you're doing what you can to help the community along. If you are a trans person, even if you're not a trans person, you know, if somebody starts saying, oh, look at that tranny over there, you might, I don't know, say, please don't use that word, it's derogatory towards those people. That's a trans woman, she's beautiful. She's no different than any of these other cis women over here. What's the big deal? Who cares? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so this is Zara for Trans Youth. You guys know the drill. Comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Love you guys, and thank you. Thank you so much for all your support and everything. Thank you. This week's topic is transition and children. So, what I mean by that is basically, do I want kids? Has transition altered my view on children, wanting children, having children, etc.?